I'm delighted to be joined today with Sam Blake, CEO of the Eagles Community Foundation, which manages the Vertu Motors Arena in Newcastle. So thanks so much for being with us today, Sam. It's great to see an industry professional actually in their given venue. So obviously you opened the arena there back in January 2019. You ran 200 very successful events. Then came the dreaded pandemic. Obviously, as we know, that decimated the sector with many venues being closed. But you weren't one of those because you became a test and vaccination centre. And I believe you also ran as many community events as you could as well during that period. So perhaps you could just tell us a bit about the journey and what it's entailed.
Sure. So you're correct. We're 13 months into having built an arena and we got shut down, which, no one in the country, if not the world, actually could predict that this was going to come. So when it did, as I'm sure the rest of my colleagues in this sector, it was a really tough, hard time to actually close the doors on this building. We built it for the community, and all of a sudden to literally send everyone home and to lock up was incredibly tough. The week before lockdown, we did literally put out lots of emails, and we rang lots of our contacts to say we have this most amazing building. If you need it, we will literally hand the keys across. If, however we can help our community, we're here. And that call actually came in quite soon. We even trained up volunteers to make sure that they could open the building, because obviously staff had to be furloughed in order to try and protect the business to get through this time. So volunteers actually stepped up and made sure the building was opened very early on as a relief centre. And we worked for a week to distribute packs out to children. And that was lots of sports packs, activity packs, books, to make sure that they had resources at home. And then the next call came, and that was with Street Games to actually be a distribution centre for the summer holidays. So we had £1 million worth of stock based with us across 6 weeks. And again, volunteers from Newcastle Eagles Club stepped forward, and they actually provided that service to make sure the building was safe and open, and our COVID risk assessments were in place. The council were happy with everything that was happening in the building, which allowed it to be used and continues to be used. And then we became a testing centre, which was in the car park, and that was with our council and with the army. So they kind of ran alongside each other at that time. And then we had the return to play guidance with Sport England. So we were able to return about 650 of our junior members back into the building. And that was in September, October. And then obviously the news came that we were being locked down again in November. The college, we have a tenancy agreement with Newcastle College. They were able to continue some form of education with their vulnerable students in particular. So we made sure that everyone was looked after within the building. And then the call came about vaccinations, and that was via Dr. Jane Carmen, who we've been working with, who's one of our GP practices. And we were overwhelmed with actually being asked to become a vaccination centre. And as you can see behind me, we currently are set up. We've got 6 pods behind, and we've been vaccinating on site all this morning. And we've been a vaccination centre from December the 23rd. Our oldest, I believe, on site was 103 that day. And now we've got all the youngsters coming through. And I believe on site we've done 76,000 vaccinations to date. So it's kind of the moment we're kind of juggling everything, making sure that we still are working with Newcastle GP Services and providing a safe vaccination centre, and also making sure we've got 1,100 now junior members who've returned to our sport and activities, and making sure that when they come in, it's a safe environment for them as well. So we're kind of juggling everything alongside each other, along with our education programme with Newcastle College. So it's been actually a really busy time, just a very different time as a result of the pandemic.
Sounds like you've been busy. So, and then obviously, we're starting to get back to live events with fans and everything again. So how are you preparing for that?
Sure. So the Newcastle Eagles women's team and men's team, who are in the top leagues, they obviously were all behind closed doors last season. But in the risk assessments that were in place for both teams are very, very strict guidance, and their Sky TV coverage as well. So we've kind of gotten used to making sure our practices are really tight and robust on sites. And obviously recently we had Matchroom come in with their boxing event. And that was incredible because it was the first time we actually opened the doors to 1,000 people. So actually to see a crowd return into this building in a safe environment and working with our public health department and council and making sure everything was tight on restrictions, it was a really interesting event to do. And again, a really high profile event with it being live on Sky. It's been an absolute privilege that we've been asked to stage that in this building. But like I say, I think because we've kind of worked through from really April onwards and making sure that this venue is very COVID safe, we've kind of adapted what's been needed to make sure each event or when someone comes into the building, it's a really safe environment.
And then obviously you mentioned there, obviously the Eagles Community Foundation is a charity. So, what are the sort of added challenges, of being a charity and then, obviously having tenant venues like the Newcastle Eagles basketball teams and then, like you say, the university, how does it work keeping all the stakeholders happy?
I think true partnerships is the answer to that question. I think when you've got partners on board who really believe in community and outreach and what all of us are actually trying to do to benefit Newcastle and the surrounding areas, I think actually partnerships are easy to run. The Newcastle College have been unbelievably amazing throughout this period of supporting us and continuing to support us. The club have absolutely been there alongside us, and as I said, have actually supported a volunteers program to make sure that we've gotten through this time. The Eagles Wings is what we call them, because literally they have been incredible throughout this period of making sure that they're there for us, because they appreciate the fact that actually it's a really tough time to be able to staff up. We're not in that period right now to be able to do that, unfortunately.
And then obviously, over the last 2 years, I think everybody actually on the planet, not only in our industry, has had to diversify. So how do you think, what's happened is going to inform, the way in which you operate and manage the venue moving forward in a post-pandemic world?
I agree. It's actually the first time in 20 years, I've been doing this for 20 years, which is a long, long time, that you've actually had time to reflect and actually sit down and actually look at your business and, kind of start to think about actually what does the future look like. And I think, to give our sector a little bit of breathing space, although this time has been incredibly tough, and I know there's going to be tough months ahead, it is giving us the opportunity to actually look at P&Ls on events and activities we have in here and choose maybe where the direction's going a bit better than what we previously had, and actually make sure that how we fill the space and take away from communities, because every time we have an event, it obviously does have an impact on our members and other community groups coming into the building. So we want to be a bit wiser in choosing actually when we do release dates for events to come in, because we're not just an events based building, we're a community building first.
And then finally, how do you think the whole industry as a whole, or more specifically for your specific niche, how do you think everything is going to evolve, post-pandemic?
It's interesting, we've had a Christmas event with the Road to North Pole come online and sell tickets, and their ticket selling actually has gone incredibly well. I think people want to get back to normal. I think people are looking forward to events and actually having that social interaction and getting out with the family and friends. So From everything I see, I think it's going to be a really strong return to business for everyone. I don't see any of the opposite personally. So I do think once we are allowed to operate with 100% capacity, I think people are going to be there. I just think as long as people are reassured that each building has COVID or has, has practices in place to make sure that they are safe, I do think there is certainly an appetite for people to get back to the events.
Well, let's hope we're back to full capacity events in the very near future. I know obviously we're all building towards that, but thank you so much for your time, Sam. That was great, and we're looking forward to following your Vertu Arenas and Newcastle Eagles continued good luck. One question, sorry, Sam, I should ask before we go. Obviously, the arena is called Vertu Motors Arena, so perhaps you can just tell us a bit about that whole naming agreement.
Sure. So the big part of the aim of this building is that events and sponsorship actually pay for children to take part in sport. We are in the West End of Newcastle, and we really want to have no barriers economic-wise into why kids can't be in here, and that's throughout the programme. So if you can come in as a participation kid all the way through to elite, we want to remove those barriers on finance. So when Vertu came in as our building sponsorship title, it was incredible. I can't tell you, honestly, I've got goosebumps just talking about it, what it actually meant for everyone in this building, in our community as a whole, for this national company who was started just down the road from here. It's just the biggest compliment and certainly the biggest boost to everyone in this building. And as I say to all of our 1,000 members, that they believe in us and what we're trying to achieve.
That's brilliant. It's great to hear your story, Sam. And thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thank you.